"Gunny, why is there a museum piece on our firing line?" The voice cracked out like a whip, dripping with arrogance. Corporal Trent Walker, barely 20, grinned at his buddies as he jabbed a finger toward the old man lying prone on a canvas mat. Phones were already out. Livestream rolling, the chat filling with laughing emojis. 82-year-old Gideon Stroud didn't move. His cheek rested steady against the worn walnut stock of an M40 sniper rifle, the same model Marines had carried through the jungles of Vietnam. His hands, gnarled but steady, slid across the bolt with the kind of smoothness you only earn after half a century of care. The only thing that shifted was his eye. One gray iris behind a scratched brass-ringed scope. Watching the heat shimmer at 1,000 yards, Walker smirked wider. "Careful. Grandpa. That thing might misfire and take you with it." His friend, Private Jason Cole, chuckled. "That scope's older than my dad. Can he even see the target?" The pack of young Marines roared, confidence magnified by their sleek M110 SAS rifles, polymer and rails gleaming under the Nevada sun. The ridicule spread down the line like wildfire. A few competitors frowned but kept silent. Walker was a top shot in his unit, cocky and untouchable to most. Stroud was nothing more than a relic, a prop out of place in a Marine Corps sharpshooter competition that showcased the best marksmen in the Corps. Walker pushed it further. He strode to the range safety officer, a gunnery sergeant with a jaw like granite. "Gunny, I've got a safety concern. That competitor's weapon isn't regulation. Looks unstable. Could be a misfire or worse." The line froze. A direct challenge wasn't a joke anymore. It was a public shot fired at the old man's legitimacy. The gunny's boots crunched over gravel as he approached Stroud. Silence deepened, the kind that makes you aware of your own heartbeat. He crouched, voice firm but professional. "Sir, I need to inspect your rifle." Stroud sat up slowly. No anger in his eyes, just the calm of someone who had weathered storms like this 100 times. He handed over the weapon without a word. The gunny cycled the bolt. Smooth. Checked the chamber. Clean. Examined the barrel, the trigger, the battered scope. Old. Yes, but flawless. Finally. The gunny straightened. "The rifle checks out. Non-standard, but safe. You may proceed. Any malfunction, and you're out." As Stroud reclaimed the weapon, his thumb brushed across a jagged scratch on the scope housing. For a moment, his eyes clouded not with embarrassment, but memory, and that scar on the glass was about to pull the entire Marine Corps back into a story it thought was buried in the jungles of Vietnam's. "Hey soldiers, report your position. Where in the world are you watching from? Subscribe to stories." Untold new missions every day, Colonel Patrick Graves leaned over the aide's shoulder, eyes narrowing as the black-inked dossier filled the screen. Most of it was redactions, whole paragraphs swallowed in secrecy. But at the bottom, one entry survived the censor's pen, Project Iron Fang. Lead marksman, efficacy rating 100%. Graves felt a cold weight settle in his chest. Iron Fang was one of those whispered programs from Vietnam so secret its existence was officially denied. Black Ops snipers operating beyond the line of history. And this man, this old Marine lying on Range 7, had been its lead operator. "Get the base commander on the line." Graves snapped, his voice sharp as a rifle crack. "Code Alpha heritage issue. Then get me a car and a security detail. We're going to Range 7. Now, back on the sun-baked line." The command rang out shooters. "Commence fire." The air cracked alive with reports as Marines unleashed their first strings. Corporal Walker, eager to strut, fired 5 rounds in rapid rhythm. His grouping blinked on the digital screen above his lane. Tight, neat, center ring perfection. He racked his bolt with theatrical flourish, then leaned back with a smirk, The old man beside him hadn't moved. Gideon Stroud lay motionless, cheek pressed to walnut, as if carved into the earth itself. Walker cupped his hands. "Hey, Grandpa, you gonna pull that trigger or just nap it out? Better hurry before the wind shifts or your hip locks up." The gunnery sergeant snapped, face red. "Walker, mind your lane. That's your final warning." But Stroud didn't react. His world had narrowed to the circle of light in his scope. The glass was scratched brass and old steel, but the crystal inside was pristine German glass, clearer, sharper than any polymer optic on the line. Through it, he didn't see paper. He saw a puzzle, the shimmer of heat, the subtle pull of the wind across his cheek, the drop waiting at 1,000 yards. His body slowed, breath sinking with the earth, finger easing toward the trigger, and then a sound. Low, distant at first, rising. Not thunder. Engines. Big ones. Heads turned. Down the gravel access road roared a convoy of black SUVs and military police cruisers, dust boiling behind them. They didn't stop at the lot. They rolled right onto the range grass, halting in a perfect, menacing line. Red and blue lights flashed in silence, no sirens, which somehow felt worse. Doors opened in disciplined unison. Out stepped the base commander, a 2-star general, uniform razor-creased, face carved in stone. Behind him strode Colonel Graves and a wall of sergeants major, the Corps' backbone embodied. The effect was instant. Rifles lowered, voices died. Some of the finest marksmen alive froze in absolute silence. A general didn't just drop by a firing line. His presence meant catastrophe or revelation. The gunny's whistle shrieked, "Cease fire, cease fire, unload and show clear." The general didn't glance at Walker, didn't glance at the gunny. His eyes cold, unyielding, locked only on one man, Gideon Stroud, pushing himself upright, stiff but unbroken. And for the first time that day, the young Marines realized they were in the presence of something far greater than a competition. Engines thundered down the gravel road, a dust storm boiling behind the line of black SUVs and MP cruisers. They rolled straight onto the grass, halting in perfect formation. No sirens, no announcements, just presence. Doors opened in unison. Colonel Patrick Graves stepped out first, tablet under his arm, his expression carved from stone. A wall of sergeants major followed, their ribbons and stripes catching the hard Nevada sun, and then silence deepened. Major General Victor Rains climbed from the lead vehicle, his uniform razor-creased, his eyes colder than steel. He didn't hurry, he didn't need to. Every Marine on the range snapped taller just from the weight of his stare. "Cease fire, cease fire." "Weapons clear the range," officer shouted, whistle shrieking, bolts slammed back, magazines dropped to the dirt. The laughter and cocky rhythm of a moment ago vanished like smoke. What settled instead was a pressure, heavy and suffocating, as if the desert itself had paused to listen. Corporal Walker, who'd been smirking only minutes earlier, now stood rigid, his pulse hammering in his throat. Around him, Marines exchanged quick, nervous glances. None dared to whisper, none dared to move. General Rains walked forward alone. Each step crunched gravel, steady as a drum beat. He passed Walker without a glance, past the gunny, who snapped into salute, past the digital scoreboard still flickering with fresh groups. He stopped in front of Gideon Hawk Stroud. The old Marine had risen to one knee, his rifle laid flat on the mat. He didn't speak, he didn't salute, he just looked up, calm and unflinching, at the 2-star general looming over him. Rains held his gaze. Seconds stretched into an eternity. No words, no gestures, just the silent clash of two worlds, one built on polished brass and authority, the other forged in jungles and scars no briefing could contain. Behind them, The entire firing line held its breath. Every Marine felt something was about to break open. And then the general spoke, voice low, deliberate. Clear this range. Everyone stays until I say otherwise. The general stopped 3 feet in front of Gideon Stroud. For a moment, the air itself seemed to pause, every eye on the decorated uniform and the weathered man on the mat. Then, with a motion so crisp it cut the silence, Major General Victor Rains snapped the sharpest salute of his long career. His hand didn't tremble. His posture was carved from stone. "Mr. Stroud," Rains said, his voice booming across the range, "it is an honor to have you with us." Stroud gave only a slow nod. Behind the general, Colonel Graves stepped forward, tablet in hand, his eyes flashing with restrained fury. Corporal Walker Graves barked. The young Marine, pale as paper, jerked upright. His entire fire team snapped to attention, rigid and trembling, for the education of those who have forgotten what respect means. Graves said coldly, "Let me tell you who stands before you." He read from the tablet, but his voice carried the weight of history. Gideon Stroud, United States Marine Corps, enlisted, 1965, 1st Marine Division, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. He fought at Ashau Valley, Hughes City, and places now etched into our chapels and our blood. The silence thickened. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Stroud was awarded the Navy Cross, then a 2nd Navy Cross. And on Hill 775, where he held off an enemy battalion for 36 hours, armed with little more than the rifle you see here today, he earned the Medal of Honor. A gasp rippled across the firing line. Mockery was gone. Every smirk had vanished, replaced by stunned awe. The young Marines stared at the old man, not as a relic, but as a titan from their own history books, standing in the flesh. "And one more thing," Graves said, eyes cutting into Walker. "In 1987, right here at Fort Ridgewell, Gunnery Sergeant Stroud used this same rifle, this so-called museum piece, to set the 1/500-yard single-shot course record, a record that has stood for 37 years, a record every Marine on this base, including you, Corporal, has failed to break." General Rains lowered his salute, his gaze glacial as it locked on Walker. "Corporal, this corps is a house, built on the sacrifice of men like him. You mocked his rifle. That rifle has seen more combat than your entire company combined. You mocked his age. That age was forged in jungles you cannot imagine, fighting for the freedom that gives you the right to wear our uniform." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a knife-edge whisper. "You are relieved of duty. Report to the Sergeant Major. Your new post is the base museum. For the next month, you will scrub its floors and learn the story of every weapon, every uniform, every hero. Do you understand?" "Yes." "General," Walker croaked, face bloodless. Stroud finally spoke. His voice was low, calm, carrying the weight of years. "General," he said, resting a hand on the officer's sleeve, "the boy is young. We were all young once, eager to prove we belong." He turned his eyes to Walker, not angry, not gloating, just steady with weary wisdom. "Son, this rifle, this scope, they aren't about technology. They're about respect. Respect for your gear, respect for your brothers and sisters, respect for the legacy you're part of." His thumb brushed the jagged scar on the scope once more. His voice tightened. "Softer now, every scar tells a story. This one carries a brother's soul." The line stood frozen, breath caught in reverence, and then Stroud lay back down, steadying himself for the shot that would decide whether history still lived in his hands. "And most of all," Gideon Stroud said, his voice low but steady, "respect for yourself. A steady hand and a clear eye don't come from a factory. They come from here. He tapped his chest, and here, his finger touched his temple. It's the marksman, not the rifle. His hand lingered on the scarred scope, and memory surged a muddy foxhole. A sky that reeked of rain and cordite. His spotter, Aaron Delgado, a San Antonio kid with a grin that never quit raising a helmet on a stick to draw fire. The first shot missed. Aaron winked. Got him. Then came the second crack, a ricochet that sheared into Stroud's scope, saving his eye. Maybe his life. Aaron patched the gouge with epoxy, calling it a good luck scar. The next morning, Aaron was gone to a mortar strike. That scope was no relic. It was a promise, the last touch of a brother. General Rains nodded once. Clear the line. Everyone off, except Mr. Stroud. The range emptied in minutes. A semicircle of Marines formed behind. Silent now, reverent. Even Corporal Walker stood among them. Face drained of arrogance. The line is yours, Rains said quietly. Stroud lowered himself back to the mat. He didn't adjust the scope. He didn't check the wind. He became part of the rifle breath. Steel, memory fused. The world slowed. One breath in, one out. The rifle cracked. The sound rolled like thunder across the valley. Silence. Then the monitor blinked alive. A perfect bullseye. Not just perfect, mathematically flawless. The record Stroud had set decades ago flickered. Then fell. A new mark appeared, higher than any Marine had ever reached. For a moment, the world held still. Then came the roar. Not applause, not ceremony, a thunderous ovation of respect. Marines cheered, some with tears in their eyes. A legend had returned, not to prove himself, but to remind them what the uniform meant. The story spread through the Corps within hours. Walker was reassigned to the base museum, where a month later he found himself polishing a Vietnam exhibit when the door opened. Stroud walked in, plain clothes. Quiet smile. "This is a good place," Stroud said, resting a hand on the glass. "Lots of stories here." Walker swallowed, voice thick. "Sir, I understand now." Stroud studied him, then clapped his shoulder. "Keep learning. Son, that's all any of us can do." As Stroud left, Walker's reflection in the glass had changed. Not a brash hotshot. A Marine beginning to understand the weight of his heritage, because the heroes who walk among us often carry the heaviest stories with the quietest grace.